Knowing that it's normal that I have this much technology, how can I make the best out of it? I encourage them to take a step back. What is your goal? What is your objective? What is the job to be done? All of my podcasts, guesting, it's all logged in Notion. All of my hosting, all of my interviews, it's all in there. So really, it's like an entire business system in one place. Everything has steps, very prescriptive. You don't even have to think, you just are following the steps. I'm from Miami, and we're definitely known for our hospitality. Growing up, I had South Beach, I had burgeoning restaurants, global culture. And when I was 18 years old, I threw a party and made $35,000 in one night by bringing people together. It was wild. And I said, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to be in hospitality. I went to school to study engineering, which is kind of like a plot twist to that story. And 2 years into my consulting career at Deloitte, I went to culinary school, quit, and went into the hospitality world, which basically was the continuation of this journey. I worked in a couple of startups, and before starting my company, I was involved with the turnaround of nearly a 100-year-old family-owned steakhouse, a legendary, iconic brand in the restaurant space. And after we sold that business, COVID started, and I said, now's the time to start my own business. It's been a very cute story, pretending to be a creative entrepreneur inside of other companies, but now it's time to do it for real. And so in 2021, I started my own business, and here we are a couple years later.
Very cool. So a bit of a roundabout way to becoming a full-fledged entrepreneur. Tell us all about MDM. What do you do? How do you do it? Who do you help? When exactly did you start it? And let's start unpacking that.
Sure. MDM originally started as $1 million machine. It's serving the largest population of small businesses in America right now, which is the 86% of solopreneur businesses, one-person operations. Most solopreneurs, there's many reasons why they don't scale, why they don't bring on additional team members, but our belief is that they don't know how to use technology effectively. They don't know how to successfully collaborate with other people with tools so they can grow their teams 3, 5, 10 people. They're glued to the cycle of email, WhatsApp, text message, and Facebook and Instagram, whatever. They just can't seem to create a new way of working such that they can build $1 million machine.
Interesting. So what led to this being the pathway for your business when you said, I'm going all in on being an entrepreneur?
When I was in the hospitality world, I noticed that guests really loved going to restaurants so that they can decompress, so that they can literally restore themselves. The word restaurant comes from the French word to restore. And so when I thought about my experiences in restaurants, I said, you know what? Us as entrepreneurs, people come to us because they want to restore themselves. They want to solve a problem. For you, maybe it's a marketing problem or a website problem. For me, it's a technology problem. And they want to feel better after having left us than before they got here. And so I said, how could I channel this experience into my work? How can I teach people like Brien to design their businesses such that they can provide a 5-star experience so that their clients can feel regenerated, so that their clients can invest more with Brien? There's many ways of doing that, but the answer or the starting point is, hey, we can use technology to create that 5-star experience.
Okay. So tell me about your clientele. Are they in the restaurant business, hospitality? It sounds
No.
like it's the solopreneurs. So I guess that might lead to my next question. How do you incorporate hospitality? How does that play a role in your business based on who you're serving?
When I teach people my concepts, I use the story of a restaurant because everyone is very intimately familiar with a restaurant. My clients are solopreneur service providers, coaches, consultants, trainers, community builders, people that are delivering complex offerings. Because when you are delivering a complex offering, you tend to need project management software. When you build a website, it's not like, oh, let me hire Brien and the next day it's done. There's a meeting, and then there's another meeting, and then there's, hey, here's a design, and okay, let's get approvals. It's a complex process.
Yep.
And so people who are offering services or offerings in anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000, those people need to have very fine-tuned delivery mechanisms where they're actually keeping track of all the different activities, all the meetings, all the decisions, all the requirements of a specific project. And so those are the types of people that we offer, that we serve.
Okay, gotcha. And that is such a huge need in the space because having been part of communities, taking courses before, it's one thing to do all the front end work to get the client, right? To get a customer, to be, a customer of your solopreneur business, your coaching business, whatever it might be. But then it's another thing to actually deliver it well and stay on top of those people so that you can continue serving them in whatever fashion it is that you intend to do. And technology, that is a huge tech enabled space. And it could be tech disabled if you have no clue what you're doing and you don't seek out any help in that area. So let's talk about what technology do you use? And then how does it work when you actually help them implement? Is it more of like a done for you? Is it a done with you? Let's start there.
Yeah, so my specialized, technology platform of choice is Notion. And Notion can be seen as like a competitor to Asana or Monday.com. The reason why I choose Notion is because Notion is very open and it's able to actually connect with all of these different other softwares that you use. People might be listening to this and be like, oh my God, so much software. Notion actually did research on how many different tools companies use. And they found that the average medium-sized business uses over 90 tools, the average.
Crazy.
Personally, I use 45 personally.
Wow.
And I'm a solopreneur business. And so listeners might be like, oh, I have 15. It's so overwhelming. Knowing that it's okay to have 15, like it's okay to have 30 even. Once you recognize and acknowledge that it's okay and like it's just part of the process.
Acceptance is the first step.
Yeah, your nervous system can immediately calm down. You can immediately recognize, okay, knowing that it's normal that I have this much technology, how can I make the best out of it? Because people, they're like, oh, how can I eliminate these tools? No, it's not really eliminating them. It's just having them work in concert.
Right.
And so anyways, that's the Notion being the hub of the software. I start there. And once we have your core set up, we then eventually implement Kit, which is ConvertKit. We implement Tally Forms, which is a form building tool. We also implement Relay, which is an automation platform. But these are tools that happen later on. It starts with Notion. And when it comes to working with us, we have a framework called the 5 recipes. And we sequentially move through the 5 recipes as we believe it's the kind of the order. This is something I interviewed you on in my show. The first recipe is the transformation that you provide. So what are the specific steps that you take to deliver that thing, that service, that experience, that process to someone so that you deliver a successful transformation to them? The second one is connection, which is the relationship management, keeping up with different people in your ecosystem. It's your follow-up process. It's sales, it's partnerships. And once you exhaust everyone in your network, it's time to turn on the marketing engine, which is recipe number 3, communication. It's posting on social media, it's sending out emails, it's nurturing that broader ecosystem, because those lead to connections, which lead to more transformations. Most entrepreneurs know these 3 recipes, and the differentiator comes in recipe 4 and 5. Recipe 4 is organization, which is how do you now build teams of people that are following specific tactics that are powered by tools, powered by technology. And then the final recipe is actualization. How do you now build a nurturing environment where everyone feels excited about the work that they're doing? So when it comes to working with us, we help install these 5 recipes inside of every one of our clients' business.
Okay, gotcha. And let's take a step back for listeners who may not be familiar with Notion. You compared it kind of to like Asana or Monday. So is Notion, I guess let's talk about the capabilities of Notion. Is it at its core a task manager system, or what all can Notion do?
Their mission is to give their clients the ability to design whatever they want to design.
Okay.
And what that could mean, how we help our clients see it, is project management, which is task management, relationship management, which is the CRM, managing sales
Okay.
processes, managing partnership processes, it's a marketing system. I mean, keeping track of all the assets across your platform. It's very important in website world. It's like a CMS, a content management system. I have that
Right.
inside of Notion. Weekly planning, quarterly planning, all of your different planning cycles are inside of Notion, so that when you are having company meetings, let's say on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, it's all inside of Notion. All of your notes are in there.
Okay.
I mean, I can
Gotcha.
keep going, but like, you can have it do anything that you want. All of my podcasts, guesting, it's all logged in Notion. All of my hosting, all of my interviews that I have, it's all in there. So really, it's like an entire business system in one place.
So it's somewhere that you can kind of, now you said you use 45 different pieces of technology, and using multiple pieces of technology is not, it's unavoidable, right? Like obviously it's just part of the game. However, if you can combine certain ones all into one place, it makes your life that much easier. That being said, so like in Notion, you can do your project management. Also, it acts as your CRM, so internal and external management. So like internal, like team communications, kind of like a Slack. Does it have like a Slack feature to it? And then with external, like, can you send your emails from there? I know you mentioned Kit, formerly ConvertKit. So I guess, what are the limitations of Notion? Like, when do you start tying everything else into it?
Yeah, well, Notion will not solve all the problems. I mean,
Right. I don't think there's any technology out there that solves every problem.
no. I mean, I do consider myself top 3% user base, not 1%, because that's like the true gods. But even with that, I am still using 40 other tools, like you said. Um, I do use Slack for my business as well as a chat functionality, because the idea of Notion being open all day, every day, it's not realistic. So I do
Mhm.
use Slack in tandem with Notion. And when it comes to sending emails, Notion can actually send emails as part of some of its automated workflows. So if like a status changes from, I don't know, idea to confirmed, it can send an email to your team. It could also send a Slack message. A lot of people, they kind of say like, oh, Notion's great because it can send emails, or it sucks because it can't send it. That people get tied into the features. They're like, oh, it can do this or it can't do this. And I encourage them to kind of take a step back. It's like, what is your goal? What is your objective? What is the job to be done? Because sometimes, like, sending an email isn't the problem if you literally have 1,000 unread emails in your inbox. It's just going to be another
Right.
email. So, I encourage people not to get caught up in what it can or can't do.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. All right. So let's kind of shift it back towards your business. When you first started, how did you start finding clients in this space? Because I mean, this is I don't want to say it's unlike any other business where it's hard to break in, because I'm sure it is. But how did you first get your business off the ground and get your first client?
A lot of networking. I mean, entrepreneurship groups are key. I know you mentioned listeners are kind of on the fence, potentially starting entrepreneurship. And I would encourage them to go visit their local networking group, not a BNI.
Yes,
Um,
different.
yeah, not a BNI, but there has to be some sort of a entrepreneurship focused group, a mastermind, a coffee chat, something where you can meet
Chamber
people.
of Commerce, anything.
Shame, yeah, anything, and tell people what you're up to. Say, hey, I'm working at a marketing agency and I'm thinking of starting my own site shop, whatever it is. But like, the important part
Hmm.
is it. There's two tough parts. One is showing up, like having the courage or the commitment to show up, and then having the courage to open up and kind of say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Do you have any experience, any wisdom you could share with me? Just be vulnerable. Like no one knew what they were doing when they first started.
Exactly. Well, and for you, like this is such a cool area of business because I'm sure we have plenty of listeners out there who might consider themselves experts in a certain piece of technology, or technology is technology. If you use it and you learn how to use it, and you know how to use it well, you now have the technical skill to be able to teach someone else that technical skill, right? Or at least show them how it's done. That's a business right there. That is what you do. You know technology inside and out and how to apply it to specific businesses, and now you have a business. So you started getting into this industry. You got your first few clients. What does an engagement look like with you in this type of business? From square one to passing them off, or is this like a continual? You are a partner with them. You're always like almost on their team and helping
Yeah,
them do this. What does
so
it look like?
it's a great question. And there are basically three tiers that I work with people. The first tier is they are in the maker tier, making momentum, where they join our community. And once they join our community, they have access to our signature course that they are basically working themselves. They are self-implementing the 5 recipes into their business. They're setting up Notion. They're doing it's very methodical. Our 5 recipes are delivered through recipes. Everything has steps, very prescriptive. You don't even have to think. You just are following the steps. That, because courses are so tough, we couple in weekly office hours so that people can join as a group, as a collective. People are learning from each other. They're sharing screens. They're kind of getting that live support from me and my team. That is a year-long commitment because, you don't just set up a system and it's running. So people commit a year at a time. The second tier is our multiplier tier, where I am basically coaching you. You have access to all the community, and then I meet with you twice a month to ensure that you are progressing, also being available for you and your team. So one of my first invitations for people is that they get a full-time practitioner, a full-time VA, or a full-time operator that's going to help the pioneer or the CEO stay in their zone of genius. The CEO is not intended to like be on the keyboards with Notion. The CEO is intended to be out there speaking to people, closing deals. And my desire is that they have a practitioner that is hands on the keyboards, and I'm kind of mentoring that practitioner, both in the community and in that one-to-one capacity. And then the
Gotcha.
highest tier is I'm basically meeting 2 times a week with your team. It's a very intensive consulting engagement where I'm literally helping you build and configure the software inside of your business.
Wow. Okay. So for the highest tier, that's where you are most involved, and that's, I guess, what type of client falls in that range of they're the ones that need the highest touch and highest attention.
We have journeys that, evolutions that we see our clients. There's 5 stages to becoming an MDM. So in the beginning, you're a pop-up pilot from 0 to 150K in revenue. Once you hit that 150K mark, we have a term that you become a committed cafe. You're now committed. You quit your job. You're doing this full time, and from 150 to 500K, you stay in that that committed cafe range. At 500K, you become a booming brasserie. A brasserie is a term for a French bustling restaurant that's busy and exciting. We believe that at $500,000 a year in revenue, your business has several dozen customers and your team has started to grow. And it's at that point where I say, hey, what got you here is not going to get you there. That's where you radically have to shift your internal infrastructure before you create the growth in your business. And so it's at that point where we say, you need an intensive support, because usually it's the CEO just doesn't have the skill set to make that internal transformation. And they'll be, oh, I'm going to hire a VA. It's like the VA is not coming with the skill set equipped to transform your business internally. That's where we see our role in helping you facilitate that change.
Okay, very cool. So as your business started growing, you mentioned your team. So can you kind of explain what your team looks like, what their roles are, and the steps it took for you to start building that team?
Yeah, so we have 4 people. Right now it's me. I have my EP, my not executive producer, my executive practitioner, the person who just supports me with what I need. And that can be anything from uploading content, editing videos, engaging with the community. It's very little all over the place, what most people would think of as a VA. And then the 2 other people are usually the implementation team of client solutions. So after I meet with clients, I basically uh, collect a brief of requirements of what they need, what needs to be built out, and I communicate that to the team, and then they build it out. Everything is done through Notion, through our tasks, through Slack. We use these asynchronous tools to ensure everything is clear. And the way I found them, I mean, it starts with a role description. It starts with like, what do you want in someone? So I list out everything that I want to see in a candidate. Because once you have it on paper, now you start to either you could share it with someone, you could really like materialize that into your life. And once you do find that person and you start taking them through the interview process, I mean, everyone has a different amount of stages of their qualification process. I have 3 interviews, personal fit, then a skills assessment, and then just like vision and alignment fit with the business and where it's going. Once they join, I have a 90-day onboarding period where in that onboarding period, they are completing my actual course itself. They're also going through all of the content that I have inside of my curriculum. And through that, I start to spoon feed them client work and just test and validate that they're progressing as needed, as
Awesome.
desired.
Okay, so when you decide to start growing a team out, were you at a certain level of workload where you're like, okay, I'm no longer the solopreneur here. We're serving solopreneurs, but what was that? Was there an inflection point, or was it just kind of like, hey, we're ready?
Yeah, I mean, when I work with clients, I have them design an ideal week. And in that ideal week, there's ideal like time slots where you are working on client projects. And so let's say I have 40 hours in my week. And because I am the CEO, I'm doing sales, marketing, podcasts, I'm also doing the client work. I can't always be doing client work. So let's say I say 50%. So in my 40-hour week, 20 hours of my time goes to clients. At the point that you're reaching maybe 18 hours a week of client work is when you can start to kind of think, okay, I keep doing what I'm doing. I'm soon going to be at 24. The model's going to break. And so that's when you can start looking like, okay, I want to free up my time so that I don't have to be in the business of delivery. I can now bring people in.
Gotcha. What's in your line of work here, what are some of the struggles you've ran into while growing your business?
I'm a technology person. And so whenever Notion or any of these tools release a new feature, I'm like a squirrel, like shiny toy syndrome. Like, oh my God, I got to master all the new parts of this new feature. And I don't know if it's a struggle or just like something I face, like an obstacle. I just like spend 6 hours learning about all this new stuff. When the client is, barely scratching the surface, I find myself getting distracted. And so even though I am a systems person, I'm also a CEO that likes shiny toys and gets distracted easily.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's very common amongst us entrepreneurs, shiny object syndrome, but not all shiny objects shouldn't be explored, right? It's just a matter of staying on top of when and where the things need to happen.
Correct.
Um, so before we hit record here, we were talking a little bit about some cool stuff you're doing with AI. Can you share with us at all how AI plays into the work you do with clients or in your business in general, whether it's on the back end or externally? And you being the tech nerd that you are, where are you with AI right now?
So AI is pretty cool. I do mainly use it, or I had been using it a lot for content creation, for generative AI, as people say.
Hmm.
helping me write emails, helping me write copy, web copy. A differentiating tip I would say for people, it's like, hey, if you've ever recorded a podcast or if you ever recorded any content, grab a transcript of you speaking and feed it in as knowledge, because then the AI can like speak like you. It can produce content in your tone of voice. And so I have like 20 different prompts, 20 different like sets of instructions or like additional resources that I give to it. So it is producing very relevant information in the way that I would share it. So that's a cool part on the generative side. And then for process automation, this is what I was talking to you before the call. One of the key parts of when I work with clients is it's a lot of like definition, like defining this. I said it earlier, like defining the steps to deliver the transformation, defining the steps of what happens at each phase of the sales journey, defining the steps of when you're producing content, like what is happening at each phase of the content creation process. And so when you look at a process, even as simple as like podcast guesting or podcast hosting, if you think of the manual process, it's okay, reach out to Brien, confirm that we are scheduled. And then before the actual show, sometimes people spend hours listening to your episode, looking for points of resemblance and like really coming prepared to the show. What I'm building now is an agent that looks at my calendar 1 week out. If it sees any event that has podcast in it, it's going to take that email from that person, look them up on listennotes.com, produce a report for me with the last 3 episodes, and already tell me, hey, like you should talk about this because in his last month of content, he hasn't talked about this. And because you're the business systems guy, these are some unique angles that you can talk about. And so that whole research process just got cut down to 3 minutes.
Wow.
And so that's like one example of how you can use AI to shorten your processes. But I myself, I literally just started doing this a month ago. I'm sure there will be a lot more coming through.
Yeah, wow. And that's just using ChatGPT to plug in and do your guest research, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
ChatGPT's like search functionality.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. Awesome. Well, Ernesto, I think this is the type of business you're running here is really unique. At least to me, I'm familiar with a lot of folks that help out in the technology sector, but it sounds like the amount of attention that your clients get and the amount of help that they get and that they need when it comes to technology makes this an extremely lucrative business. So if you're talking to anyone out there in our audience today who may have heard this and they're like, "Oh, I'm like." Insert technology name here. I'm really good at this, and I've always wanted to get into entrepreneurship. Is this the opportunity? Is this the way to go? Is this a fantastic opportunity to look at it and be like, I can help others with this piece of tech, and as long as I know that there are people out there who struggle with it?
Yeah. As I said before, most of the work with me is defining and naming and clarifying and just getting clear on how you are delivering your offer, keeping up with people, creating content, sharing your message with the world. Because when you are clear on it, you can now communicate it to a team around you. You can now delegate more effectively, and you can grow, you can work less. It's just much easier. It's much simpler. And so I would encourage everyone to reach out, send an email. We don't have to jump on a sales call. I don't do sales calls. I also just make sure that people that are interested in me are actually interested. We're not just scheduling a call because you have a pulse and you're calling yourself an entrepreneur. So I do encourage people saying, hey, if you think you want to start getting my scorecard, which it's a very simple assessment. You answer 5 questions, not 27 profiling questions. It's very simple. And it's going to produce a 1-pager. And on that 1-pager, you will just see for yourself, how am I going to go from where I was last year to 150K? Is it more clients? Is it increasing my price? Is it increasing my conversion rate? Like what is there's 6 levers to this. And so, I make sure that people who want to grow with me are kind of looking at their business through that lens.
I love that. I love that. Well, Ernesto, this has been awesome. Thanks for sharing everything about your business with us. I think it's definitely something, there's some actionable advice and some inspiration in here that a lot of people can take to the bank and maybe turn into their own business. So, the items you just mentioned and reaching out to you in general, let us know how we can all get a hold of you or get a hold of that assessment.
Sure. So if you find me on LinkedIn, it's kind of the first item in the featured section. Or you can go to score.yourmdm.co.
All right. I love it. Well, Ernesto, thanks again, man, for joining me. This was a blast, and best of luck to you and your business in the rest of this 2025.
Thank you, Brian.